Ladies and gentlemen and in-betweeners, tonight we are boldly going deep into conversation with television producer and prince of Star Trek, Roddenberry, as we chat about the Star Trek legacy and life beyond Trek, and me, your favorite host, with the deepest voice. So raise a glass and set your phasers to stunning.
Thank you for being
Boulevard.
Life is a banquet, and most poor suckers are starving to death.
I'd like to propose a toast.
This is On the Rocks with Alexander, coming at you live, where I drink with your favorite celebrities as we talk about fashion, entertainment, pop culture, reality TV, and, well, that's about it. So pop a cork, lean back, and raise a glass to On the Rocks.
Fasten your seatbelts. It's going to be a bumpy night.
Oh, Lord, it's me, a bumpy night. Klingons and cons and leprechauns. This is On the Rocks, the place where we're too glam to give a damn. More than I'm excited about pumpkin spice lattes being back, and yes, I'm very excited. Yes, I'm a white girl who wears yoga pants in the valley. I'm also excited about spicy nuggets are back at Wendy's. Nobody's getting all that excited about it. You know, it's the problems of a curvy girl. Oh, you're excited, Kurt?
I'm super excited. I love the spicy nuggets.
I've never seen you so excited. That's how we know. Rod, are you a fan of the spicy nuggets? I mean,
I can't say that I eat healthy, but I haven't had Burger King or McDonald's in quite a while. Yeah. No, but trust me, it's a false claim because it sounds like I'm healthy, but In and Out, no problem. I mean, tons of these other places, no problem. I just haven't had that in a long time.
All right. So. Well, try the spicy nuggets. You'll be.
Try the spicy.
I wish they were sponsored so I get some free.
Someone told me about these mini tacos at Wendy's. Like, anyone know something like? No, Jack in the Box has these
mini tacos.
Someone says they're amazing.
Why would you want? That's called a taquito, by the way. For all you white people, try to change. It's called a taquito.
This is the only thing I have to contribute to the fast food conversation. Sorry, guys. That's it. I'm out. Bye.
Well, I'm going to take you out for some spicy nuggets, and you can show me mini tacos.
Done.
That sounds fun, though, because you can shove more in your face, I think. Right? Thank you to our sober listeners for tuning in. We love you, too. Thank you for holding our hair back when we need it and driving us home. But if you are drinking, the official vodka of On the Rocks is, of course, Equality Vodka. 20% of every bottle helps fund nonprofits that work to secure equality for everyone. Visit them at equalityvodka.com and social media. They're delicious, by the way. Today's sponsors is Volante Design, maker of my fabulous licensed Star Trek-inspired jacket for streetwear or convention wear. You can wear it as a blazer. You can wear it closed. They just sent it to me. I'm really, really excited. They're our sponsor through Halloween. Feel like the protagonist in your own adventure with clothing inspired by video games, comics, TV shows, and all your favorite fandoms. Discover your style at Volante Design and save $10 off your first order with code VolanteRocks. Go to volantedesign.us, and they're a great crew, by the way, and they have a lot of respect for the shows that they build for, and they custom make stuff as well. The show is brought to you by Straw Hut Media and Here TV. Hello to our listeners around the nation on iHeartRadio, Stitcher, TuneIn, Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Spotify, Roku, and I'm excited we are now on podcast's newest podcast section, and of course we are on Facebook Live right now on KLGBT.TV, Trending Now, True FM, GED Magazine, and I Love Gay LGBT. Give them a like on your social media. If you're watching the video right now, you're watching the live stream. Like us on Twitter and Instagram at On The Rocks On Air, Facebook On The Rocks Radio Show. Send me an email. Book me for a wedding, funeral, quinceañera, bris. I don't care. I will show up. Info at ontherocksradioshow.com. Need you start liking and subscribing to us on YouTube, your podcast player. Like, follow us, share us to keep the show going for free. Everything is ontherocksradioshow.com. If I've named too many names, you can find everything you want there. On the Rocks is on the road. Evita, there's a new theater company in town. We love supporting local theater called P3 Theater Company with a residency at the Ernest Borgnine Theater in Long Beach. Check out their first production, Evita. I was there for opening night. It plays until September 29th. Go to p3theater.biz, and theater is TRE because they're fancy. For more information, also this Friday, September 20th, I am your MC in Long Beach at Executive Suites Nightclub for Overboard LBC's Laundry Day, and it's LA County's final Pride Hurrah, celebrity guests, performances, and me. Go to overboardlbc.com for more information. And finally, I am your official first ever media grand marshal for Palm Springs Pride this year, the first weekend of November. Look for me and On the Rocks Radio Show as your MC on the Pride main stage, the Pride Parade, and pool parties throughout the weekend. I get a little sash to wear around town, so you'll see me. Go to palmspringspride.org for more information. All right, let's get to it. Let me formally introduce our guest for today. Eugene, Roddenberry, Prince of Star Trek, is the guardian of the Roddenberry legacy and champions its timeless and universal ideals to generations through creative and inspiring science fiction productions, merchandise, publishing, adventures, and philanthropy. And as the son of legendary science fiction producer Gene Roddenberry, whose Star Trek series changed the face of television and continues to inspire many, many people in entertainment and beyond today, Roddenberry has followed in his father's footsteps to be a catalyst in the creation of a world where humanity works together for the greater good, which is much needed nowadays. In 2006, Roddenberry became Chief Executive Officer of Roddenberry Entertainment, a science fiction leader with a tradition of groundbreaking entertainment. Roddenberry Entertainment builds on the best of Gene Roddenberry's work and continues to pioneer the development of a multimedia portfolio of smart and provocative science fiction that incorporates graphic novels, comics, television, and film projects, including the critically acclaimed Trek Nation, which we're going to talk a little bit about today. He founded the Roddenberry Foundation in 2010. It funds paradigm-changing solutions to critical global issues in science and technology, the environment, education, and humanitarian advances. Star Trek come to life. Having originally aimed for the stars, the Roddenberry legacy lives on in Roddenberry Adventures. Roddenberry founded Adventures with the goal of promoting exploration through unique, perspective-shifting experiences. He leads the adventure-based team in its exploration of strange new worlds, revealing the beauty and diversity that surrounds us and unites all species on Earth. Please welcome, for the first time ever on the show, Mr. Roddenberry. How's that for an intro, by the way?
That was a hell of an introduction.
I even get the goosebumps just talking about it.
I kind of want to meet this guy.
Yeah.
I have no idea who you're talking
Pretty cool guy.
about.
So I have to say, when I first knew of you, and I came to know of you in a few different ways, I thought he is so cute, and I was like, and then they're like, and wife, and I was like, oh, that's okay.
Well, yes, I guess getting into my 40s, apparently I'm getting more distinguished, I guess.
Well, we call you a daddy in West Hollywood, which I think you're in West Hollywood now, right?
I'm in West Hollywood.
Yes.
Yeah.
And
I'm a daddy.
Yeah, a real daddy.
A real
and
daddy.
A daddy. Now, do you get flirted with at every convention? Because not are you part of the legacy, but I mean, you're pretty handsome.
Well, that's very sweet of you. I'm very fortunate, and this kind of answers your question. I'm not a big celebrity. I don't have a face. People don't see me on TV. I'm not like Will Wheaton. If that guy tries to walk down the street, people will come up to him and bother him.
I have at a bar in North Hollywood.
Well, okay, so no one knows who I am yet at a Star Trek convention. I've been going to the one in Vegas for 2 decades.
That one. That's
yeah,
amazing.
And so now I feel like I'm just one of the people there. I don't. First of all, I'm never hassled. So when I use the word hassle, I don't mean it as if anyone hassles me. But no one comes up. No one bothers me. No one. I mean, people say hi, Rod, and every now and then someone stops me and asks for an autograph. And so, absolutely, it's not like I have hordes of people and I'm too busy to do it. I have just a few, so happy to do it. But then I'll go to the bars at night, and I'm welcomed in by everyone as just another one of the group. So I have it pretty good from both ways. I've got a wonderful, famous last name, and I'm doing my part in terms of what I can do with Star Trek, and of course, the future of humanity. And but I'm also not a celebrity, so no one knows who the hell I am. It's great.
What I really love about the energy you have is your humility and your honesty. You're very open about your own experience with Star Trek. You didn't enter the scene like, here I am, and I'm going to save the legacy, and here's what we're doing. You were questioning as a new fan, which I actually loved, because when you tell somebody you're a Star Trek fan, you get two responses. You get, oh God, I love Star Trek, or you get, oh, nerd. And it's like, well, no, it's about this whole universe. And you talked about this in Trek Nation. The conventions, we always see like the really outlandish people. Sure. But there's people that lead great lives that have been inspired by Star Trek. Yeah. And whether they're even from minority groups. Yeah. Star Trek celebrated racial diversity. Now it's celebrating LGBT. I mean, it celebrated so many issues before they were issues, especially hot buttons now in Hollywood. And there's this strength that people are leading their daily lives based on that.
Yeah, no, I'm incredibly proud. I mean, if you don't know already, and of course from the documentary, I'm incredibly proud of what my father created, that vision of the future. I'm a genuine fan of it. When I was 13 and coming home from school, my father would get the tapes every Thursday. Back in the VHS days. And I would genuinely pop them in and watch them. Not because I was a huge Star Trek nerd at that point, but there was something about this show that resonated with me. And while I didn't get the metaphors and subtext all the time, there was just something attractive about this future and this crew with everyone working together and exploring. And Next Generation was my show. That's what I wanted our future to be. That's what I want our future to be. So I'm a genuine fan of the philosophy. And of course, as years went on and I learned more about Star Trek, I became more and more of a believer follower.
Well, and the whole idea of family, you know, I was raised by a single mom. I mean, she was my family.
Yeah.
And Star Trek family became family, and it showed you that you don't have to be blood family to have a lifetime and for people to become your family. Generation after generation.
And what a great message for humanity, not to get all deep right now, but yes, there is something about blood family. Frankly, I'm not sure what it is, but I understand that concept. But I don't like the separation. Family can only be blood.
Right.
You're 100% right, and it depends on how you define family. I didn't have a very big family. I didn't have a rough life, but I had my mother and my father. My father passed away when I was 17. I didn't have any brothers or sisters, really. So my family was my mother, and my grandmother, which I saw every now and then. My family was my friends at school, and they have been. My closest friends today are friends that I went to high school with because we were there for each other. And so I think family is what you make it, is I guess all I'm trying to say. So whether it's Star Trek, whether you ride Harleys and you have a close group of brothers and sisters who ride in the Harley group with you.
Who wear outfits, by the way, too.
Who wear costumes, absolutely, or sports, or you name it, or Star Trek. Whoever you identify with, whoever you get close to can be your family.
And what I love about the Star Trek universe, it's open. If you're an outcast in any way, shape, or form, and we're all outcast on some level, you're always welcome. That's what I love about the Las Vegas conventions.
Yeah.
You don't have to be a super uber fan to have a great time and feel welcome.
Yeah.
Or you can, and you could drive up in a shuttlecraft for all I care. And,
it's a great example of the true acceptance of everyone around you.
Yeah. So let's talk about you growing up. What were you watching on TV? What were some of the shows that kind of shaped your view of TV and entertainment?
Well, obviously the cartoons as a kid. I was the Looney Tunes thing, but that's not, I think, what you're asking. I moved into, Knight Rider was probably my number one show.
They're rebooting Knight Rider, by the way.
Again.
Yep. Everything's getting rebooted.
Well.
David Hasselhoff's waiting by the phone. Sorry.
Well, yeah, we'll see. I wasn't too happy with the last ones. But the Starsky and Hutch, Emergency, those types of shows were the shows that, at least when I think back, I remember the most. And then, of course, movies. Like Star Wars was something I grew up with, certainly more than Star Trek at that young age.
Well, and you even had like Star Wars birthday cakes.
I have photos of me blowing out Star Wars birthday cakes.
I had a few Star Wars birthday parties too, and I had the little toys. Like I had everything.
Wasn't like a crazy fan, but in terms of sci-fi and what came out in the theaters, I loved Star Wars.
Yeah.
Motion picture, at first, at the age of, what was it, first grade, 79, bored the hell out of me.
Bored you to tears.
Yeah. I was just too young.
And looking back, I love the film because it's the first time we see the crew together after so many years. And what I like about that is we see the connections right away when everybody sees each other. It is coming home. Is it a long film? Yes. Is it a little boring at parts, especially if you're a young kid? Yes. But the excitement I felt for that film was when my mom telling me about it, how she as a little girl, growing up on Star Trek and then seeing the Enterprise for what it looked like and seeing the crew back. And it was just this euphoric sense of coming home.
Yeah.
And that's what the film really was about. And the uniforms were still tight, which I appreciated. I thought the uniforms got a little loose as the films went by. What natural hobbies did you have in school? Like, what kind of kid were you? Were you in band? Were you with the goth kids? Were you?
This is embarrassing, and I'm honest. So, for me, high school, junior high and high school. Well, junior high was a little bit of me, I guess, trying to figure out whoever the hell I was. And I'm still doing that today, by the way. I ended up trying to be the cool kid. So I was into heavy metal. I grew my hair long. I wore leather jackets. I drove fast in my car. Whatever the stereotype of the wannabe late 80s, early 90s rocker was what I was. I listened to Motley Crue. They were my favorite. Frankly, I still love Motley Crue, but a lot of the hair bands. And, I thought I was cool. I'm not sure if I was a jerk about it. I'm sure I was on some level. I don't think I was a bad guy. I still have a lot of friends from that time. But I was just a little dumb rocker guy, or trying to be a dumb rocker guy. I don't know.
Everybody went through that phase.
Sure.
I went through the phase where all I wore was Hot Topic for a while.
Yeah. But what I loved it is I had this attitude, for better or for worse, at the time where I didn't care what anyone thought, and I don't mean just purely rebellion. I mean, I dressed, I wore my hair the way I wanted to, I shaved my head, I wore the clothes, my ripped jeans. As dumb as someone else might have thought it was, I didn't care. I was more confident in who I was, even though I look back and I'm not sure what the hell I was. But I was more confident then. And then as I got older, you know, you tend to get a little bit more insecure with yourself sometimes. And I think I realized that, damn it, I was more secure with myself as a 15, 16, 17-year-old than I am now. Now my head was firmly planted up my you-know-what back then, but it was, I remember feeling more confident, you know? Not that I'm entirely insecure now, but now, you know, just you think about like, oh, should I be worried about what this person's going to think? Should I do it anyways? Ah, shit, I don't know.
Yeah.
You know, so.
But there is that kind of confidence with Star Trek fans, especially when they've united. What did your parents think through all your changes? Because, you know, looking at pictures
They
like
thought
your
I was
family
on
pictures.
drugs.
Oh, really?
And you know what? Believe it or not, as badass as I thought I was, I did not do any drugs. The first time I smoked pot was like 1997. Yeah. So no, I drank, but I drank at parties. It was beer, and it was just sort of that sort of thing. And, but that was it. I was for a badass dude. I was a goody two shoes. I also went to a very nice private high school. So my level of tough guy was not very tough. It just seemed that way to me at the time.
Well, it's funny because if we look at your pictures, and you've shared a lot on Roddenberry and on various sites, we see you go through a lot of changes from like the long hair, black hair, blonde. I mean, and even fashion wise.
Someone trying to find themselves.
Did your parents be like, "What are you wearing?" Or did they support you in all of your changes?
I think at some point they just gave up trying to figure it out.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I remember at one point my parents accused me of being on steroids because I had acne on my back. And apparently, you get acne when you're on steroids. My father accused me at dinner of like taking drugs or being on steroids, and I was so, you know, teenager, so angry and pissed because I wasn't.
Yeah.
And I slammed my fist down, and I don't know what I said, and I ran out of the restaurant and walked home. And based on that anger alone, he probably still thought I was on steroids because of the reaction there. So
I'm from West Hollywood. A lot of y'all are very angry for no reason.
Yeah.
When did you first have the idea that Star Trek was a thing and that your dad was part of it? Not the revelation you had after coming back to the fold, so to speak. But like I always wonder if Barbra Streisand's son was like, "Stop singing, Mom," or Gordon Ramsay's kids hates his cooking. But they still have an idea. When was your first kind of taste of that it was, your household was a little different?
So I was always aware on some level, and always is relative because I don't know how far back it goes in terms of how young I was. But I was always aware that my father, I guess, worked on the show Star Trek. In fact, when I was a little kid, apparently, like really little, I would go to people and said, "My father produces Star Trek." I had no idea what it meant.
Yeah.
I'd never seen it.
It was the thing.
Someone told me something, and that was, it got a reaction, so maybe I learned to just say that. So I knew my father worked on a TV show called Star Trek. Anytime I tried to watch it, it was boring. It was too intellectual. You know, again, young kid, also not that bright. But I think working on the show as a PA when I was 13, I got the opportunity to work on Next Generation, first season, PA, 13 years old. I still didn't get it, but I was introduced to how big it was. Mm-hmm. And that's not even that accurate. You know, I used to go to conventions. My mother would bring me to conventions when they had them at the, was it the Hilton at Disney? They used to have conventions there every year. Creation did. Yeah. And I would go there, and of course I'd see all these people in costume. Granted, it was all sci-fi, but I'd see plenty of Star Trek people. And, it surrounded me a lot. I was aware of it. I just wasn't aware of how big it was, how grand it was. And the story that I've told many times that you can see in documentary, which in the documentary Trek Nation, which is true, was at my father's memorial service, that one moment is it started to sink in, how big Star Trek was and how significant.
Well, that memorial, and there's video footage in Trek Nation, actually. Talk about a celebration of life. But it was kind of a life that you really didn't know at that point, and losing your father, regardless of what his status was at 17, that's pretty hefty.
Yeah, it was. It's more hefty now on reflection than it was then, even though it was certainly a huge hit to me. I hate to make myself sound so oblivious to life. I don't think I was this oblivious, but there was so many things going on in my life. You don't fully comprehend the grandeur of Star Trek, losing your father. I mean, granted, losing my father, I understood that I'd never see my father again. I wept for days, of course, but it wasn't. I only kind of see now, knowing my father from a whole different light, how significant it was. And then seeing my change. I mean, I changed dramatically from that moment on.
Well, and coming to a celebration of life and seeing so many people that were so moved by him that you really didn't have connection to, like the original cast. And these were icons in his legacy.
Yeah.
But there was that disconnect because you were too young to have been part of that.
Yeah.
And kind of away. Plus, your dad was busy working on Next Generation.
And we were butting heads, too.
Yeah.
I was the rebellious teenager, and he was the father at work all the time, and we had a huge generation gap. He had me at age 52.
Yeah.
And so, he was unable to relate on whatever it was I was going through, and I certainly wasn't able to relate. So, by no means, there are far worse father-son relationships out there, but in terms of my bubble, my world, we did not get along. So we were butting heads. We loved each other, but we were definitely clashing quite a bit at that point.
And the fact that he was gone for so many hours a day.
Yeah.
And it was during your high school years.
Yeah.
What was your biggest guiding force then in high school? Who was your biggest influence then?
So as much as I was a rocker trying to be cool and all that sort of stuff, in 8th grade, our school had junior high and high school. At 8th grade, there was this guy who worked in the bookshop who was a ninja. At least that's what we, at that age you hear that's what he is.
Yeah.
And he could, I remember hearing, he can use a samurai sword to chop an apple off your head, which I don't think he ever did or could do, but
that's how
you hear
rumors
the
happen.
stories.
Yeah.
And he was going to teach this class in jiu-jitsu, and you could sign up for it after school. And so a couple of my friends did it, so I signed up for it. And I did it for my entire junior high school career. It was jiu-jitsu. His name was Steve Copping. And he was a Canadian German and a funny, goofy, happy guy who really, it wasn't...
A goofy German? Are you sure he was German? That must have been the Canadian part.
I was going to say it's the Canadian part, I'm sure. Who it wasn't about fighting. It wasn't about kicking anyone's ass. He taught us so much more in the principles and philosophy. Sure, we learned the techniques. But every day we'd come into class. Listen, if you didn't bow coming to class, you forgot. It's not like you had to do 100 push-ups. You'd be like, forgot to bow. Come on, do it again, guys. Everyone step back. Very forgiving, very about education, very about letting us sort of find ourselves and find our connection to the art. And I fell in love with it. And he was the biggest influence. Every time we had an issue, we could go to him, and he would have something. Granted, it was a little fortune cookie-ish, but he would tell us, we'd think about it, he'd explain it to us, he'd make us think about it, and we'd feel a lot better. It would make sense. All these sayings. He would have a saying on the board every day, and part of the class would be to sort of look at the saying and decipher it. It wasn't just about get in here and punch that guy or hit that guy or throw that guy. Technique was just half of it. Learning about yourself, each other, was the other half.
It's funny. That's very Star Trek. It's like, let's not go to fist fighting first. Let's look at all sides of it.
And it's where I first heard the term unconditional love.
Yeah.
Which was so important. It's where I learned to hug another guy there, because at that age, guys didn't hug, and you learned how to hug another guy because it just meant you cared for them. And unconditional love meant, obviously, what it sounds like, to love someone without condition.
Yeah.
It's easy to say now verbally, but it's really hard to practice true unconditional love.
Like you said, these weren't themes that were talked about.
Yeah, certainly not
especially
them.
in the male culture.
Yeah.
Did you try acting as a child? Because I found some early headshots of you out there, by the way. Kurt, can you show? Look at that head of hair, by the way.
Oh, please tell me you have the one of me on the tricycle in the dirt on my face.
There's another headshot. No.
There's one in there where I'm on I've got a helmet under my arm, and they put dirt on my face, and I'm on a tricycle, and it's like I've just had a rough day at the track, and I'm like, I'm like 5 or 4 or whatever it is, and those were my headshots. My mother wanted to get me into acting.
Really?
And I did like 4 or 5 commercials. Crystal Foods, Kingsford Charcoal, Granola Clusters, Max Steel's Robot Force. I can't believe I remember these, and One to Grow On.
Do you have any of those?
No, I've been
anywhere?
dying for years. I'd be humiliated, but I've been dying for years to find these things.
I'm sure they're somewhere.
I'm sure they're somewhere, but I'm sure they're buried because I was not acting material. I can't act my way out of a paper bag. I promise.
Really?
You. Oh no.
I don't know.
No.
And your mom worked at Desilu Productions for a while, and she actually got to study comedy with Lucille Ball.
I don't know much about her acting career, but she was an actress, obviously. I mean, she wanted to.
She did a lot of those early 60s shows.
And that's how she met my father, as classic as it is.
Yeah.
I don't know if there was an actual casting couch involved or not. But, my father was married at the time.
Yes.
And, well, we can all figure out.
It was a quick transition, I think.
Well, it was a quick transition between the two of them, but legally
Yeah.
it was a long,
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of stuff was happening without other people knowing.
And your mom was in the original Westworld, by the way. And if you haven't seen
Yes.
that, go back and look at it.
She was the madam.
Yes, she was.
She was
Robot
the
Madam.
Yep.
I'm sure there's a drag queen in West Hollywood called Robot Madam somewhere.
I've got to tell you something. When I was talking to you earlier, I was talking about how all my friends would say how cool my mother was. And because she was my mother, I never really saw her as cool. And this is I'm telling you stories that you'll love hearing, except your audience will wonder why I'm telling you. I can't remember. 7th grade, 8th grade, 9th grade. So my high school was all boys. And we had an all-girls school that we were partnered with.
Okay.
And so Christmas, my mother and father got me a condom machine. I would have parties at my house, and so I think as a joke they got me a condom machine. I was pretty young. I can't remember if I was sexually active or not yet, but I started pretty young there too. And when we were going to a party, I had my friends in the car, my mother was driving.
And the reason that it's still here today is such a testament to its strength. But there is some. Did you find a picture, Kurt? Oh, here's actually a picture of.
There's my mom. Yeah.
That's
awesome.
Yeah. If you haven't seen it, like I said, you have to see it. You'll Brenner. But there is this roughness to Trek. It didn't just blossom into this magical. And we use the word legacy but that's the right word. It had struggles on the way.
Sure.
It still has struggles. But to know the honest stories behind it. And I did get to meet your mom as well, and her version was her big personality.
Yes.
The woman we saw in Next Generation. That's who I saw.
And that was her. By the way, that they didn't say we've got this character, we need someone to fill it. You've heard the story. Like, she was going to be in it. Gene Roddenberry was the husband. His wife was going to be in it. So they had to create a character, and they just said, let's just make her be herself. And it's a small exaggeration, but it's only a small exaggeration in terms of her personality. Loxana Troy, if you let my mother go, that was my mother.
That's who I had to see, but nobody can be that all the time.
Sure.
And I call her the queen of Star Trek, and she was by your dad in some difficult times. After the show was canceled, the original show, it was slim pickings.
Yeah.
And there was struggle there. She always seemed like a silent force to me because she was never really vocal about the journey of Trek. She was just very supportive and a big personality, but she never. In the way that I experienced her, revealed many truths about Star Trek or her relationship with your dad. Other than that, she was supportive and loving.
Yeah. She was the housewife until he passed away. She was really the housewife. I'm not saying she wasn't capable. I'm just saying that's the role she played in our household. As after my father passed away, we obviously saw her become much more than that.
Yeah. She has a very silent strength. It would have been interesting to have really sat down and had a real conversation with her.
Yeah. Well, that's what happened in the documentary. When I was doing the documentary Trek Nation, of course, I wanted to talk to her about my father. But whether it was the generation, whether it was our relationship, neither my father nor my mother were very open to sharing personal things, whether about themselves or each other, to me, their son. They were always very protective. And especially after my father passed away, my mother, even though I knew things about my father, infidelities, drugs, certain things, she would never acknowledge them. She would never talk to me about them. And so when I wanted to sit down with her and have an interview with her and have her share about the man, it wasn't I wasn't out just to find the negative, but she knew him the best.
Yeah.
And so I was truly a son trying to understand who the man was. Warts and all, as he would say. And it was, I don't want to use the word disappointing. It was difficult. It was sad. It was disappointing. She still couldn't open up.
And that's what I mean about being that silent strength.
She was still protecting him.
Yeah.
From even,
That's exactly
yeah.
it. And there's so many stories there. And, we have found out a lot about your dad's life, about, he would like to frolic and play and drug use. I actually think it adds more to the Star Trek story.
Absolutely.
Just like we see Captain Kirk is not such a great hero. I mean, he's a flawed person. Everybody in Star Trek is flawed in their own way, even if they're their own flaws. And that's what I really love. It's you can be as flawed as you want and come to this universe.
And still be an amazing person.
That's
still be an
exactly
incredible
it.
human being, yeah.
That's exactly it. We're going to take a really quick break. For those of you not listening live, you're going to have to listen to a commercial. And we're back. Wasn't that amazing? When you decided to revisit Star Trek after your dad's passing and you started to appreciate the universe, what show episode did you start with? Did you start like right at the beginning?
Well, I don't know if this answers your question. In terms of shows that resonate to me and things that still stand out, the episode. So there was a moment where Star Trek clicked, I guess, and it was Devil in the Dark. And whether it was the first time I actually paid attention, I don't know what it was, but this was an episode where, not to give it away, spoiler alert, 50 some odd years later, there's the rock monster on the planet, and of course humans are mining on the planet and they're being killed, so they call in the Enterprise to save the day. I believe the crew comes down and does it first, at least tries to kill it because it's killing them. But at some point they get the brilliant idea, this is a life form, let's try to communicate, so Spock mind melds with it, and we end up learning that it is an intelligent creature. It's not just a killing machine, and what it's doing is protecting its young, and its young are these crystals that we've been mining. And so I every time I tell this, I get chills. I just got the chills because who's the devil in the dark? Who's the bad guy there? We think this blob, ugly thing is the bad guy. It's a mother protecting its young. And even though we didn't know better, we're the monsters killing its children. Of course it's going to attack us. And I don't want to say Knight Rider and Starsky and Hutch and Dukes of Hazzard didn't have depth, but they didn't have depth like this. I didn't come away from any one of those episodes going, wow, I have empathy for the bad guy.
But it also didn't hit you over the head with it, too.
Sure. You had to figure it out. That's
Right.
when it hit you over the head.
And like you said, it hits you after. You're like, oh, which in today's social and political climate, everybody is taking such definite sides. And we forget everybody has a mother. Everybody has feelings. Everybody has a point of view. Whether we think it's right or not, let's at least listen and have a communication.
No, I'm quick to join. We won't get into politics, but I'm quick to join the bandwagon. I am not a Trump supporter. And I'm quick to just, anytime I hear something, just some derogative term out of my mouth towards him. But it takes a real unconditional loving human being, which I am not all the time, but I'd love to be more so, to understand that this guy's been brought up the way he has, sees the world in a way that's certainly just different to the way I see the world, communicates differently than I do, had parents that did the best they could to teach him what they did. Doesn't fall in line with my views, but he's still a human being, and to have some sort of empathy for him. It's really tough to say that because I strongly am against a lot of what he does, but it's a great exercise for us all to find someone out there who is someone you strongly disagree with. I mean, you can go all the way back to Hitler if you want.
Yep.
And try. It's an exercise. I'm not saying I agree with Hitler. I'm just saying to at least try to understand things from their point of view. Well, at the very least, educate you and inform you. And then you can make an informed decision. As opposed to just jumping on the bandwagon. And again, I am not supporting Hitler.
Yeah.
Please. Please.
But we've seen Star Trek messages at protest and marches, which I think is such a testament to its overall message, whether you're a sci-fi fan or not. It's a message for humanity. And you said you want to be more unconditional, and I think your dad has a quote out there. It's like, our journey is to be a better person than we were today, over and over again.
Yeah.
We're never going to get to that point because you're always bettering yourself. But isn't that journey amazing?
Yeah.
We have seen you and your family on stage at conventions. Your son is so adorable. How are you going to explain the Star Trek legacy to him? Have you already started to talk about it? That's a big message. How do you share that in a way that you didn't have that message shared with you?
He is an amazing kid. Everyone will say that about their kids. He, at an early age, we got right into, I don't want to say philosophy or ethics, but we did get into ethics. We just didn't call it ethics, When there was a good guy, bad guy, whether it was cowboys and Indians, cops and robbers, whatever. In fact, our conversation had to do about robbers, had to do about the bad guys that the police chase. And we taught him early on, the bad guys aren't bad guys. They're misunderstood. They're doing what they have to do because they feel they need to do it. Sure, if you get into chemical imbalance and psychoses and things of the mind, they're still not bad people. There's other conditions. But I'm just saying a lot of people on our planet do things because they feel it's their only option. And by no means am I claiming to try to identify with any of these people. My life and theirs are completely different. I can just try to intellectualize and understand it to the best of my ability, that I believe what they're doing is not because they are bad people. This is a last resort. This is something they feel they have to do. And this is what we explain to our son. And he now says, bad guys aren't bad guys. They're just misunderstood. And you know what? I mean, I could almost just knock off now and say my job is done.
Yeah.
If he carries that on for the rest of his life, hopefully everyone that has a contrasting point of view, that is opposed to him, that is opposed to his views, he can at least carry, hopefully, that message of empathy into that.
And that's funny because that's one of my follow-up questions is, what legacy do you want to leave to your son? And
empathy.
You just answered that.
It's something I believe in strongly. I'm not sitting here on a stool saying I can do it better than anyone. I just know it's the right thing for us all to do.
And it's not the easiest thing to do all the time.
No, it's incredibly difficult. Incredibly.
It's like being on a diet. Sometimes you do it, sometimes you don't. Womp womp.
Don't get me started. I'll drink to that.
Yeah, right? You have now embraced the Star Trek world. It must come with a lot of benefit from the fans giving you this energy and this joy that they experience from something that you're a part of. But it also comes with a lot of heft. Do you ever sometimes be like, I don't want to talk about Star Trek today?
No, there's so for real, there's never a time that I don't not want to talk about Star Trek with anyone. And the truth is, I'm not hounded or not as much as asked of me as maybe a large celebrity. Perhaps if I were, again, Will Wheaton or a larger celebrity where I was just inundated moment after moment, I might have those moments more. But I truly believe in the philosophy. I mean, I as do I know many of the actors. Will Wheaton truly believes in the philosophy. But it's my direction in life, to try to be a better person and to try to inspire the people around me. And I don't always succeed, and sometimes I'm not the most inspiring person. But every time I think about it, that is what I want to do. So no, it doesn't bother me. Now, there are times in life, like everyone else, that days are long and things are hard, and I don't want to do stuff, and I don't do stuff. And there's tons of emails that I have not responded to. But and I told that person, I am not a Hollywood type. I will definitely get back to you, and I don't. There are times where I feel like a schmuck, but no, I this is a gift. Being the son of Gene Roddenberry is truly a gift, and I'm not just saying that. It's amazing. And it's not like Star Wars. No disrespect to Star Wars. Star Wars is amazing. I grew up with it. I still love it. It's phenomenal. To me, I can't speak for all the Star Wars fans out there. It doesn't have the same message, and it doesn't have the same sort of. I'm proud to carry it on, in my own way. Kurtzman, Alex Kurtzman's carrying it on. Everyone who works on Discovery and Picard, all of those people are absolutely carrying it on. In fact, even more so than me, at least in terms of what's on television. I'm just trying to carry on the philosophy.
which I really appreciate. And you actually had the opportunity to sit with George Lucas.
Yeah.
I can't even imagine how nerve-wracking that would be, because you went to his ranch.
Yeah.
You were on his terms. And you talked about the difference of Star Wars and Star Trek. And what I didn't what I didn't realize was that your dad also appreciated Star Wars for the fun that it brought to sci-fi.
Yeah.
And George Lucas obviously appreciated Star Trek. And so there is this admiration.
Yeah. No, it was, he was, so at first we were told we got there, he would only have 15 minutes. And of course it was nerve wracking. We saw the place and it's a beautiful place and butterflies are going, I've never done this before. I'm not an interviewer, but I'm doing this documentary. He made it incredibly comfortable. And he was so, if you get, there's a, the DVD, who has DVDs? We have bonus footage. We have the entire, or at least most of the Lucas interview on, I guess, the bonus features. And you'll see he is so genuinely complimentary to Star Trek.
Yeah.
And he's, saying things like we stood on the shoulders of Star Trek and stuff like that. And he didn't appear to just be saying it for my sake. It was just an open conversation where he shared, and it was so comfortable. And then he stayed with us for 45 minutes, which was great. So I know people say they're only with you for a short amount of time in case you're a real jerk so they can get out. But apparently I wasn't too bad, so he stuck around.
Yeah, but he was working, I forget what movie he was working on, and I believe that he only had 15 minutes.
Was it the third one? I can't remember. I
have a few notes for you, George Lucas. Yeah. Let's actually take a peek at the trailer for Trek Nation. It came out in 2011, but it literally is timeless. I rewatched it literally last night. Let's take a peek at the trailer.
He gave something from his heart, a dream of the future that gave hope.
What characterized Gene Roddenberry was his vision, which, of course, was underpinning all of Star Trek.
Every time I saw one, I thought to myself, damn, this is good.
What he said to me, I'll never forget, was that in the 24th century, there will be no hunger and there will be no greed, and all the children will know how to read.
Star Trek is more than just a show. It's a philosophy.
It's said so many things to so many people about it's not always going to be this way, it will be better. That was your dad's gift.
Live long and prosper, Miranda.
I would say it's just as important today as it was back in the 60s when it first came out.
It presents hope, and that's something we all need.
Isn't that wonderful that I can say it in the present tense? Gene Roddenberry has a lot to say to us.
You can ask, how can a simple space opera reach out and touch the hearts and minds of literally millions of people? The whole show was an attempt to say that humanity will reach maturity and wisdom on the day that it begins not just to tolerate, but to take a special delight in differences in ideas and differences in life forms. What Star Trek proves is that the much maligned common man and common woman has an enormous hunger for brotherhood. They are ready for the 23rd century now, and they are light years ahead of their petty governments and their visionless leaders.
I find it interesting, for sons to try to explore what their fathers have done. It's a quest someday my own son goes on.
That's an amazing trailer, by the way, because it touches on things that are outside the Trek world. Yeah. Just seeing it, just when Star Trek is such a big part of your life, you remember where you were, what you were going through when these messages start becoming part of your life. I remember going to see Star Trek 5, and we were told by the media, like, this was it, right? And my mom took me out of school. The nurse came down, and I knew what was going on. And it was being at the first showing with the popcorn and seeing the crew back together, and it's just all these memories that just flood to you from your whole lifetime. Yeah. Other than the obvious of, honoring Star Trek, what was your biggest motivation for doing this documentary?
Not what you think. Not what you think. God, how did it start? So Trekkies, the documentary Trekkies came
Love
out.
It, by the way.
Oh, do you?
It's a good drinking game documentary because it's amazing. Now I'm geeking out right now, but it's so fun.
Okay, so at that time, the first Trekkies, at least, came out. And for me, I interpret it or saw it as it made fun of fans. It said, look at all these weirdos. Now, that right or wrong, whether you agree with that or not, I was bothered by that because my experience at the time had been fans come in all shapes and sizes, meaning you've got the hardcore ones who love Star Trek and kind of live by it, and more power to them, as long as it doesn't hinder their life or affect their life in a negative way. And then you've got people who just love Star Trek the way they love something else. And sure, they'll put Spock ears on a weekend, but during the week, they're a school teacher, they're a janitor, they're a lawyer, whatever they are. And my experience at the conventions, I met some of the most amazing people. So I didn't like that it wasn't a balanced, or at least show all aspects. It just showed the extreme. So I wanted to do a documentary, even though I didn't know how to make a documentary, that showed the other side of this. Then I found this production crew that was doing, back then it was TNN, the station TNN.
Yeah.
TNN had been showing Star Trek. And in between commercials and episodes, they would do a little spot with one of the actors and talk about more of the philosophy. And I was like, yes, that stuff, the philosophy. And so they were at a convention. I went, I met them, I talked to them. And Scott Calthorpe, who was the producer and director of those, said, we should do something. And he had this vision of doing a documentary about a son searching for his father. And at that time, I did not. I was like, well, no. I'm not going to be in this. This isn't about me. It should be about the fans, because that's what I want to do. Anyhow, we spent a long time. We spent 6-7 years shooting interviews, going over cuts, agreeing, disagreeing, those sorts of things. And I got a little lost in the weeds there. It evolved, the documentary, and got closer to a son searching for his father. It almost got too far into that because I started telling my story. And we actually had some early cuts, which when I showed to people, I was not offended by this, but it became more about my story. And did my daddy love me? And so no disrespect to me, and they said it, but I understand now especially, we don't care about your story. We want to know about Gene. My ego is not damaged by that, but I was trying to tell my story. So anyhow, we had many cuts. We finally found a producer who came on board and made the documentary that I think we both really wanted, which was this one, which was, I think, a very good balance between a son searching to humanize and find love in his father, and who this man behind Star Trek was. So that was why I started Trekkies.
Well, and I think what you have is a great product, a mix. Mm-hmm. Although the son's journey, I think that's such an important story. And we saw it in the original crew, Captain Kirk with his relationship with his son, and they, there's so many of those themes of self-identity, family. I
think we all have it, though,
yourself.
right?
We do.
Yeah, on some level. Depends on our relationship with our parents.
And you were very honest. Like I said, what was the biggest takeaway that you learned about your father on a personal level? Not his accomplishments with the Star Trek world, but him as a person. What were some of the biggest surprises?
Well, there were a few stories that I heard. One of my father's earlier writing partners talked about my father and women. Yeah. And, kind of said not off camera, it was on camera. And I don't think we had it in the documentary. We had it on an earlier cut. Maybe we did have it. But it was very important in the documentary to not just do another fluff piece on Gene Roddenberry. Right. Gene Roddenberry, the visionary, the great bird, the great this, the great that.
That's out there.
Now, trust me, there's plenty of that in there. But it was important for me to look at the negative, the dark, the man behind this. And I was actually in earlier cuts pushing for more, not because I wanted to discredit my father, but it was important for me to humanize my father for two reasons. Because I needed to identify with him. Someone says great bird of the galaxy, they put him on a pedestal. Right. A son can't identify with someone on a pedestal. I had to see the dark sides, the faults, the flaws. Then I could do this. Also, it was important that the fans see this too, because there are many fans out there who put him on a pedestal. And so many of us today put, whether it's celebrities, politicians, whatever, put them on the pedestal and they're like, this is amazing. I could never do that. Well, the truth is, not to be all inspirational, but yes, you could. These people that you're putting on the pedestal are just as messed up as you are. Yeah. Meaning they've got plenty of faults. They've got plenty of insecurities. Every day that you think to yourself, oh my God, I could never do that. Trust me, these people have said the exact same thing to them. So I wanted to do that to inspire, because Star Trek's all about inspiration. So it was certainly critical that I did that. The thing that really kind of got me the most I'll tell you, humanizing my father. When I heard the story about my father after he got married, kind of talking about some of the other women he'd been with.
That's in there, by the way.
Oh, that's in there.
Yeah.
Okay. So yeah, that was a shock to hear that. To hear that, like, right after he kind of boasted about that. That was a bit of a shock. But I was glad I heard it, because I got to know the man a bit more. And then I was able to able to identify and love Gene Roddenberry and Gene Roddenberry the father.
Yeah.
Because you know what? I'm just as messed up as he is on many levels. And by the way, I don't mean messed up, but human is probably the right term.
And that's just it. And when somebody's on a pedestal, they're not accessible to you.
No, not at all.
And like you said,
especially to a son.
Yeah. And to understand more about who you are, our family's rough edges are our family's rough edges. And your dad being a creator, I mean, he was writing, he was a cop. He worked for the LAPD.
Yeah.
And he was like, you know what, I should write this. And he sat down and did it.
And he wasn't a bad guy. He didn't go out killing people.
Right.
In fact, the story I heard, he never took out his revolver except for once, which this is the story. I don't know if it's true, except unfortunately, a dog had been hit by a car and was suffering. And so when he was in the LAPD, that's the only time he drew his gun, was to unfortunately put a dog out of its misery after being hit by a car. I don't know how true that is, but certainly didn't go around shooting people.
Well, and there's this duality. You know, we want to be better people. Do we get mad at certain people that affect our lives? Yes, we do, because your dad did a lot for gender equality, such as making first officers in, pilot a female, such as having Uhura, an officer on the bridge.
Yeah.
But there's that duality. It's like, but we like the ladies. I mean, who doesn't? You know what I mean? And it was that time culture, too.
Yeah, I struggle with that. I go back and watch the original series and Man Trap, first episode. There's a scene, and there's like 2 or 3 security officers, and of course one of the ladies walks by with the high skirt, and they're kind of like checking her out, tilting their hat as they walk by, going, "Hey, check that out," Maybe not as forward thinking as we thought, but it's easy to say that was the 60s, and it's true, that was the 60s, and I don't want to say that was okay, but that was the norm then.
Right.
But it's okay to point that out today as a flaw. It doesn't mean Star Trek's bad, doesn't mean the messaging was off. But I'm okay pointing that out, sure.
And in terms of unconditional love, which we talked about, kind of your mom was not unaware, but still being by his side and saying, we're going to be in the ups and downs because I love you. And this is...
And there's ways to criticize that too. She should have stood up and been her own, whatever. We can go down the rabbit hole on that at all the way down the rabbit hole, but I'm not going to criticize anyone. That happened. We're all growing, we're all learning, we're all hopefully taking better steps.
I could talk to you for like hours and hours and hours. Okay, true or false? The U.S.'s defiant registry number, NX 74205, was based on your birthday.
I am oh my God, I'm unaware of that.
Because that's your birthday, 74, February 5th.
I have never heard that in my entire life.
It's out there, so I wanted to confirm it. Yeah.
This is crazy.
Really? Yeah, U.S.
This is
defined.
Not that I know everything about Star Trek, but that's a personal thing. I've never heard that.
Yeah. Rumor is it's based on your birthday. Huh. True or false? You made the Constitution-class starship that was painted silver and seen in the background of many Next Generation episodes.
That is true.
That's crazy. So I used to build models, too, and it was... So that's in all of the episodes we see.
That's in like season 1 or 2, and there is a silver painted Enterprise or gold or something in the background of one of the shots.
It has all of the
I remember spray painting it before school that morning. It was just one of those model kits that I forgot the name of the companies that made them.
Yeah.
And I gave it to my dad, and he brought it in, and they put it on. That's crazy. I will also tell you something else.
Yeah.
And I've got to get back to Michael Kuda to find out if this is 100% accurate or just coincidence.
Okay. I love these kind of facts.
Yeah, this is embarrassing. So, what season? 4th season. I was working as a PA on Star Trek. I was dating a girl named Miranda. And I was just nuts over her. It was high school love. Absolutely. And I'm sure I talked about her plenty. And so... I feel like I heard, although I just don't want this to go down in true lore until someone else confirms it. and I don't know if it was Mike Okuda. I don't know what. I don't know if it's a something I remember or something I'm faking. But there is the Miranda class of Starships, and I believe that was made up over her. So it's not that I asked for it, but I think they did it, and I feel like I remember someone saying that's why they did it, but I could just be making
probably
that
a
up.
sexy class of ships.
It's
by the
probably
way.
just coincidence.
Yeah,
probably just coincidence.
No, nothing is coincidence.
Well, I don't know.
But your actual entry back into fully like the entertainment world with sci-fi was working on Earth: Final Conflict,
Yes.
which was inspired. Your mom shopped around the idea from your dad, and it was made into a series that you actually worked on full time.
I did. I was in my second to last year of college, and my mother was shopping around shows, and she teamed up with an incredible executive producer named David Kirshner, and they sold the concept. First, it was I gotta get it right. Battleground Earth, not to be confused with Battlefield Earth, which was a concept my father had.
Yeah.
And they changed the name later for reasons, just to not be too close to Battlefield Earth.
Nobody wants to be associated with that.
Yeah. So I was not. I'm not one of these ones. These kids who grew up with entertainment parents who wanted to be in the industry. My mother tried to get me into acting. I didn't want to do acting. They tried to get me into a bunch of other things they did. I didn't want to do that. Then she got this off the ground, and I finally said, you know what? I'll take a year off college because I can always go back, which is what you always say. And I can learn from this. This is a great opportunity. There's a new show coming. I can do this. So I moved from Massachusetts to Los Angeles. They offered me, they were saying things like, associate producer and stuff like that. I'm like, I know nothing about the entertainment. I'm not going to be that, So I came in as technical advisor, which was like just this homemade title. And then they moved it to Toronto. So then I went to Toronto. I moved to Toronto because I figured, like, all right, the shooting in Toronto, you moved to Toronto. I was the only one who moved to Toronto. All the producers stayed in LA. I didn't know that's how it was done. I wanted to be involved in the creative aspect, but I was in a post-production house clear across town, post-production being after everything was shot. So I learned my way. I got in there. I made a lot of friends. I loved the crew. Everyone below the line was amazing. Everyone above the line was amazing too, but I really got along. And by the way, above the line is, all producers, executive producers, I don't want to say all the decision makers, but all the high-end decision, oh God, that sounds terrible too, are above the line. Everyone who works their asses off day to day is below the line. I just made a ton of friends. And that's where I really started to try and learn what Star Trek was, what the Roddenberry philosophy was. I even created a website called Gene Roddenberry's Philosophy Sphere. And that was where I got to interact daily with fans of Roddenberry and Star Trek and kind of ask what is it about this show. So I sent in notes and thoughts and ideas on every script and revision that came through. And that was it. I mean, we'd have characters that would dive through the door of a building shooting guns. And I would have a note that say, like, well, they should probably knock first, right? I don't know. I mean, so I was learning.
But that's how you kind of came back to the Star Trek ideals. You're like, wait, it should be this because it's my dad's message.
Well, right. And not that I knew my dad's message, but I would check in with fans and I would check in with people. And of course, I'd start to watch episodes. And, over time, and I made plenty of mistakes along the way. But that was my learning ground. That was really a huge. And it wasn't about learning how to make television. It was just learning about what is Roddenberry, what is Star Trek, what is not Star Trek, what does it mean?
Well, and also how Hollywood works. We know Hollywood is not always the nicest atmosphere to work in. And sometimes it can be, when you're behind the scenes, it can be a little disappointing.
No, I was very disappointed many times because I am still very naive. And while I'm not saying I'm the best person in the world, I think I'm very honest, maybe not 100% of the time. But that's when I learned about people saying something to your face, looking you in the eye, and then hearing half an hour later they said something else to someone else.
They're Ferengi.
Yeah, I literally had a few of those experiences there, and I was like, wow, really? You don't think I would just talk to that person a moment later?
Isn't that crazy?
Yeah, no, that's so. Anyhow.
What do Star Trek fans tell you the most? What's the message you get over and over?
I mean, Star Trek inspired me. Star Trek, that is why I am in love with Star Trek, because of all the fans who have come up to me and shared personal stories. Whether they're heroic and courageous on a grand level or heroic and courageous on an internal level. Whether it's someone who has dealt with a personal issue who now feels more comfortable about sharing that issue because they believe in a future where it is not seen as a negative or something to be joked at or ridiculed, to people who have been in horrific abusive relationships, who have gotten out of relationships because they knew it wasn't the right thing for their child. I heard stories that people used to sneak tapes over the Berlin Wall, which apparently is a crime punishable by death, but they would sneak episodes over the wall for I guess family members. I guess I don't know. It's hard to say these stories without saying I know this one guy who did it, but I've heard these stories.
And these stories are out there in abundance. And, we're celebrating Mental Health Awareness Month.
Mm-hmm.
And there's so many Star Trek stories that have worked with people through suicidal thoughts.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And even in Trekkies, there are some deep moments.
Trekkies 2 did a great job of that.
Where Jimmy Doohan talks about a fan that was having these suicidal thoughts. He's like, well, I want you to be at the next convention and the next one and the next one. And she did it. And I know even in Trek Nation, you talk about it as well. But it's a message you hear on the message boards. It's like people were having suicidal thoughts, and it was the family of Star Trek and the idea that kept them going.
Yeah.
That's pretty hefty.
Yeah, no, I'm right there with you.
And you love exploration. You're actually a certified diver.
I am.
P.S. I love your scuba suit, by the way, in the style of like Captain Kirk's uniform.
I have to correct you on one thing, though. So
yes.
we're not doing Roddenberry Adventures anymore.
I was going to sign up, by the way.
We could still talk about it.
Okay.
It's tons of fun. I'm still a diver, and I still dive with people all over the world, and people dive with me, and we're all Star Trek fans. It's just not as formalized as it once was.
Diving is pretty scary, by the way. What first inspired you about ocean?
Well, again, a story that isn't what you expect.
Yeah.
When I got my driver's license, my first, that is a huge opportunity to become an adult, or at least become your own person. I mean, it felt that way. Yeah. I could get in my car and go anywhere I wanted anytime. That was a big thing for me back in when was it? 90. No, 90? I don't know.
80.
Whenever I turned 16. Yeah. Someone do the math. Anyhow.
It would be 1990.
Okay, good. I got it right. So I heard about scuba diving from people. Some people that worked in the art department of Next Generation. I don't know what year it was. And I thought, what an adult thing to do. I'm an adventurous person. It's risky. I can go take classes on my own. So that was it. I don't have too much of a story besides that. I took the course. I actually passed the test with a 90-something, which is one of the few tests at that time I ever got into the 90s on.
Yeah.
But there were checkout dives, and I never made the checkout dives. I never got certified. But 2-3 years later, I got certified in college, and I fell in love with it, and I've been in love with it ever since. It's true exploration. And I know you said scary. And sure, the unknown is scary, and I'm not trying to diminish your comment there. It is an extreme environment that you put yourself in.
Yeah.
And you do heavily rely on equipment. You are putting your life on the line. However, it is the same thing as driving a car. In that car, you are in control of the vehicle. If you don't look at your gas gauge, if you blindfold yourself, if you don't pay attention to road conditions, if you don't look at other cars, if you're not fully 100% in the moment in a car, you can easily die. But we take it for granted because we drive every day. Scuba diving can become like that. Not that you should take it for granted and not pay attention, but if you are trained, it becomes an incredible environment. And you look at your gauges, you pay attention to where you are. The benefits far outweigh anything. And yes, accidents happen as they do on the road. But it is, if anyone truly wants to feel what it's like to be in another world, you truly are in another world.
And that's the scary element for me. Mm-hmm. We're not supposed to be down there, and we are the alien down there. This whole ecosystem survives without us. It survived before us. It'll survive after us. And it exists whether we're there or not. And so that's the part that scares me, because it's like,
We're also
we don't
supposed
have
to not
power
be
there.
in the sky or the space, but we're doing it.
Yeah.
So listen, I get it, and it may not be for everyone, but it's worth. And you can see a lot snorkeling too.
Yeah.
I mean, and I snorkeling you see the most because there's tremendous color and beauty in all the reefs, coral reefs. But diving, there's a sensation that's hard to describe. Floating weightlessness, seeing real aliens, knowing that you need to rely on your equipment because every breath matters. It's exhilarating, not because I'm a thrill seeker. It's exhilarating because it is a different way to live life for that moment.
I did tell you, Mr. Roddenberry, you are very inspirational, and it's like we're just hanging out as like buds, but the messages that we're talking about and that you are sharing are very inspiring.
Oh, thank you.
Lord,
I enjoy the conversation too. Opportunity to share any of these thoughts I love.
Kurt, can we have a little bit red alert sound effect here? It's come to the time, my friend, that we do rapid fire.
Uh-oh.
Yes.
Okay.
And it, just fun little questions, but we do this every show, and we have a little fun sound effect, which I think you'll enjoy.
Blue reminds me of my nanny. Tacos.
And do fans like constantly say, "Hey, in this episode, why did you press this button and not that button?"
Oh, there we go. Oh, that's a different show, isn't it? Or a different season?
That's not ours.
Oh, that looked like, is that Voyager? Maybe that was Voyager.
Yeah. And I love that your mom's voice is literally on all of the TV episodes up to that point.
Yeah. If I can do, I don't know if we have time quickly.
Yeah.
Oh, maybe we don't have time.
Yeah. Okay, Kurt, that's enough.
So before my mother passed away, talking to her, we said, I'd love to record your voice because she is known as the voice of the computer. And how amazing. Apparently Apple and Microsoft reached out to her before she passed and said, we'd love to have you the voice of something. This
she was the
long
inspiration.
before Alexa and all that sort of thing. That just never happened. But I asked if we could record her voice phonetically, and we did our best to do it high fidelity, high quality recordings. And so we have her voice. And for the past few years, we tried with Google, but there were some issues. I have her voice, and I want her voice to be every ATM, every answering machine, if anyone. And so phonetically, we didn't get everything. There's a few things that were missing, and they suggested bringing in a voice actor, but that wasn't authentic to have someone else do it. So I've heard there's technology out there that can somehow interpret the recordings that are there and fill in the gaps. So if anyone out there knows of this technology or software, we'd like to do that. I'd love our world to just have her voice everywhere, just the voice of the computer.
Because it's comforting and urgent at the same time.
It's you know what? It's appropriate. As far as I'm concerned, it's appropriate. She is the voice of the computer on television, and I think.
And she literally was the inspiration for Alexa and Siri.
Yeah.
And her voice has been heard on many railroads in the Midwest.
No.
Did you know that?
I did not know that.
So when systems go down, it's her voice that's on many railroads. Yeah.
What do they say? It's just
like system down. Please check whatever. But it's fact. She's still, I think, on 4 smaller railroad stations.
I've never heard this. This is phenomenal.
Yes. Yeah.
Oh my God.
There we go.
There we go.
Thanks,
okay.
Kurt.
All right.
Anyway, but look into that because she's part of the rail system.
I've learned a lot tonight.
Yeah, I've learned a lot from you. Okay, rapid fire. You could go back and executive produce any Star Trek TV franchise. Which one would it have been?
I mean, I say Next Generation, but I wouldn't want to because they did a great job. So I just want to be there as an adult and understand more. Yeah.
But that's not the question.
Shit. Enterprise.
Yes, I would love
Enterprise. Enterprise, because I think there's longer time before we discover Klingons and everything would be my take, right or wrong.
Star Trek character you would love to have been college roommates with.
Data.
That's an interesting. That's not what I expected.
It would have been fun to, when you have a friend who's never done things and you get to introduce him to things or her to things, and you get excited because it's something you've done a lot, but they get so excited about it and you're like, oh my God, this is awesome. You love it too. I think with Data, that would be almost everything. Whether it's getting a certain meal or wearing certain, it would be like learning all over again.
Like my testament is like you shouldn't take a kid to Disneyland at 5. You should take them when they're like 16 because it's so amazing.
Right.
And that's kind of like your journey with Star Trek too. You're coming back to it older.
Yeah.
And
And Data would point out all these things. Like, I'd be really upset about the girl who dumped me, and he would say something really stupid, like, your chances of finding another one are 5 in 200 million, or whatever it is. Well,
Miranda's just a class starship.
Exactly. And I'd be like, oh, I feel better already.
Worst song on your playlist?
Worst song on my playlist. Oh.
You're like, oh God, if they heard.
Right now I've been listening to so much Lego music, and they're all good. My son loves all the Ninjago and Batman. I can't think of bad. It's not on my playlist. Opera, and it's just because I don't have an appreciation for it.
Huh. Interesting.
It doesn't mean opera's bad. I just don't have an appreciation.
Okay. Worst fashion trend that you fell victim to, and like we mentioned, you had many looks, which is the one years it's like, oh God, I can't believe I did that.
All right, worst is relative, because I thought it was pretty cool back then. But I had you know what I used to do? Okay, so in high school, I would take my jeans, I would rubber band them all up, and then I would give them different amounts of bleach, and so I would and then I'd tear them.
Yeah.
And then I'd wear snakeskin tights underneath. And then so I wore these like light blue, dark blue, rip torn, and you'd have to wash them so that the phrase came out on the rips with snakeskin underneath. I'd wear those to school. I thought they were pretty cool.
What? The fact that you made them yourself is pretty great.
But yeah.
Yeah, okay. You're going to create a new show set in today's time period, and it doesn't have to be sci-fi. What's the show about?
Well, I don't want to get all serious, but it's the first thing that came to mind. Something, as I've said many times tonight, empathy. We, including myself, are very quick to judge other people. Whether it's a celebrity who got caught for something, or a politician, or anything like that. We're very quick to see these reality shows and quickly say, "What an idiot! What a jerk! What a dumbass! Something that inspires people to take a moment and understand we don't know their lives, and we don't know what brought them to that point and what their mindset was. And maybe they are just being irrational, but also they probably might see things different ways. We see celebrities getting caught for doing terrible things. I can't imagine what that celebrity's life is like, how distorted.
Yeah.
And I don't mean to insult them, but like they definitely live a different life. Things have been brought to them in different ways, and they perceive things different. Therefore, they're going to respond in a different way that may not be socially acceptable.
Right.
And for us to at least be inspired and see that, and at least have that moment right before we're about to say what an idiot, where we're like, all right, well, maybe I don't understand. Still an idiot, but maybe I don't understand.
Mr. Roddenberry, where can our viewers and listeners find you?
Well, of course, Roddenberry.com and at Rod Roddenberry on all the social media.
And there's a lot of fun stuff to see from pictures that you share from sets and from your own personal life, I might add. You can listen to some of our past Trek interviews with the original Chekhov, Walter Koenig, Discovery's Wilson Cruz, Voyager's Tim Russ, and Quark, who appeared in every Next Generation Timeline show, played by Armin Shimmerman, who has a lot to say about politics, by the way. You can listen to it on any of your podcast player. Coming up on the show, we have Tony Award winner Francis Ruffelle from Les Miserables, Scream Queen Dee Wallace from Cujo, E.T. and the Frighteners, Michael Paul from America's Got Talent, country singer from Rolling Stone's Top 10 Country Videos, Brandon Stanso, and 8-time Academy Award nominee makeup special effects artist V. Neo, who started her career, by the way, on Star Trek The Motion Picture.
Oh.
That was her first major job. And, of course, she's responsible for Beetlejuice, Edward Scissorhands, Mrs. Doubtfire, Hunger Games, Pirates of the Caribbean, and so much more. On the Rocks is the place to be every week. I wanted to know if you could end our show in a very classy way. And you don't have to if you don't want to. But I would love to hear this.
Okay.
In your voice.
All right. Space, the final frontier. These are the voyages of the Starship Enterprise. Its continuing mission to explore strange new worlds, to seek out new life and new civilizations, to boldly go where no one has gone before. I did it dramatically, if that works.
I loved it.
I tried to.
I can't thank you enough for your time with us today. What a special episode.
Thank you for having me.
Yes.
This is awesome.
All right, now I can breathe because I was so nervous about today. All right, we'll see you next Tuesday.
Thank you.
This has been On the Rocks with Alexander, every Tuesday at 7 p.m. on Universal Broadcasting Network. Find me on Facebook on the Rocks Radio Show. tweet me or Instagram me at On the Rocks On Air. See you next Tuesday!